Hello, welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news, opinions, in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and the opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, we love seeing you live every Thursday night. So we already have quite a few viewers tonight in Facebook and YouTube land. Hello and good evening. And remember, your chats may show up in the show. So that's exciting. And if you can't catch us live, catch the replay or in your favorite podcasting app. You know me, my name is John Ruark, and I am I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. Next up for his introduction, Jason Richards. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, John. Jason Richards here, past master, Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia.
Woo.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Glad to have you. Next up, past master, Joe Martinez. Does that feel good?
Hello! Yeah, oh my God, it feels so great.
Still feel good?
It's baked in. Yeah, it's good.
Okay,
I dig it.
nice.
I dig it.
I couldn't tell based on the number of text messages I still get from you.
So,
about the lodge.
Right. So physically, hi everybody, Joe Martinez, past master stuff and things. Yeah, so back to your point, Jason. It's hard to let go. So I'm getting used to sitting there and sleeping or opening up crinkly candy and stuff like there. I'm getting good at, but on the other stuff, it's hard to break off. You know, you don't see things happen, and you know you gotta jump in there.
That doesn't that doesn't mean that you don't do anything.
Right.
Yes.
Look at Jason's hand. He is handsome today. He's got that little twinkle in his eyes. And you're on mute. You technically challenged
you got
handsome guy.
So excited about the compliment.
I know. I've got the hat on. That's why.
Bad hair day. That's me every day. Let's see.
Every day's bad hair day.
Yeah. Let's special shout out to the patrons who support the show. You guys are awesome. And 10 years of Masonic education is still going because of you guys. So thank you.
The average membership of a lodge meeting in most places.
You're not wrong. Head over to patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable if you'd like to chip in and be part of our super elite Illuminati Facebook group. Tarot card of the week is our next section. So let's see what we can do to bring that up. I happen to have a deck ready to go.
Tarot card of the week.
Man, may you stub your pinky toe at 3 a.m, my friend. Okay. With the lights off.
There's a delay between when you click the play button and when it actually starts.
That's true.
Timing's very good.
Thought it was safe.
Let's see. Let's
Dylan, sorry about your cat.
Oh.
I'm sorry about your cat, Dylan.
Tonight we're going off the Bones Arcana.
The bones.
Them bones.
Love it.
And tonight for the show on Mercury, hopefully we'll get some astrological alignment. Probably not, because this will be random. This will be the 9 of Cups. So,
well,
Rider-Waite system. You've got the dude sitting in front of a table of 9 cups behind him, kind of looking content, kind of looking a little stoic, a little meh. Not as apathetic as, say, the 4 of Cups, but certainly content. He's settled in.
Well, he's achieved his goal, right?
Yeah, 9 is almost next to completion.
Like he just got his first Social Security check, and it's like, it's enough. it's like, enough. We'll get by. One less scratch off this week, but we'll make things happen. We'll eat.
He's gonna go, post something offensive on the internet.
Right. Whip out, dust off the hat. It's election year. That's the kind of guy he is. I feel. Yeah. He's all right.
Right. Awesome. So
why are you on the bottom? It's really
I know.
Freaking me out.
Fix it. Around. There we go.
Yeah.
Let's move Jason over there. Now
Yeah,
we're back.
yeah.
Now
Yeah.
the world's back in order.
That's better.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because Joe is the Mercury to our salt and sulfur.
The thing that kills everyone. Thank you.
All right, let's
Smells
continue
worse.
on our second section.
No, sulfur smells worse.
Yes, where this is our second of our 3-part series, which is on the Tria Prima and
The what? Say that again.
Prima.
Wow. One more time.
The Tria Prima.
There you go.
Notice how his voice got like super quiet.
He had it because you felt the
Actually,
thoughts
it's the
go from his brain to his mouth. Like we saw the process happen. It was wonderful.
Okay, so these guys have
Well,
been
that's
spicy
me, too.
in the green room. These guys have really have their A game tonight, which I do not. But tonight we're going to continue the conversation.
A game in the green room. That was
I
the
did.
Yeah.
We're going to continue our conversation on salt, sulfur, and mercury, where we talked about salt last week, and now let's talk about mercury. So, what
Because
is
I can't
mercury,
count.
Joe?
Yeah. So we can go from a scientific perspective, I guess.
Yeah.
It is, yes. Well, it's many things. We've got planets that are named it. We've got elements on the periodic table that are named it. All the things. Yeah, mercury is a metal, but it's a metal that is liquid at room temperature as opposed to every other metal on the periodic table, which is a solid.
Also known as quicksilver.
Also known as quick. I like that name better than mercury.
Sounds like
Quicksilver's
an X-Men.
cool. Yeah. Yeah, it totally
Well,
does.
so Mercury, being the winged messenger god of Hellenic
To the
faith.
Romans. To the Romans.
Romans. Yes.
And who would
Yes.
that be to the Greeks?
Hermes.
Hermes.
Yes.
Connection number one.
Not Trismegistus.
No, the OG Hermes.
The OG Hermes. Yes.
Not Hermes that our wives want us to purchase
Single
all the time.
Majestus. Not
That none of
Tris.
us can afford. Yes.
Yeah, so one thing I again would give a special shout out to Brother Adam for suggesting this 3-parter, and he made a point to also bring up the etymology of the word too, which is kind of cool. Where yes, the Greek name for Mercury, which I am totally going to screw up. So Joe, why don't you do you know it?
No, hell,
Do you know it?
hell no, you go for it.
Hydragyros?
Say that again.
Hydragyros or gyros?
Gyros is correct. Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds better. Yeah.
Which
job.
which relates to hydra, water, and argyros, which is like silver. So hence the water silver, silver water, quicksilver. And it got
Not to be confused with colloidal silver.
no, that's a different thing.
No, it's more different.
Than alchemy. And yeah, so quick using kind of the old English quick gyros. We have the quick meaning living silver, right? Quicksilver. Because it was shiny, living, sparkly. It's like living water. So that was kind of a nice little etymology there. So that's the original Greek name, but of course we assigned it to a Roman god and called it Mercury ever since.
Mhm.
It's rare though. It's not found really common at the Earth's crust. So you kind of have to work for it or create it.
Well, it's liquid too, so it's kind of hard to find pools of mercury just lying around. And if you do find them, you'll probably die.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm sure it has been discovered, but not shared with anyone.
You know what they say? You can do anything at least once.
There's that first poor guy, like, oh, hey, there's a pool of.
Well, it was a foundational part of like Eastern medicine, and where it was thought to prolong life, heal fractures and maintain good health. So I wonder what the methodology, but behind that was.
Yeah, that's interesting too, especially when you think of another relationship to Mercury is like the Mad Hatter,
Yes, that's right.
right? In the Alice in Wonderland books and series, and the reason he became mad was because apparently for hat making, Mercury was a common element used in the formation of hats, and so you play around with that stuff too long, you breathe it in, you get it in your hands, and get it in your cuts and wounds, and next thing you know, you're going a little off your rocker. So that's where the Mad Hatter comes from.
Yep.
Which is why I chose to be hatless tonight.
Well, you have that luxury, sir.
Every day is a bad hair day. So one thing I also wanted to set this up for too, that we didn't talk too much about, because we had the excellent introduction about Paracelsus and alchemy history. But when we start looking at what's so important about the three of these things, salt, sulfur, and mercury, we kind of want to set up kind of the framework too. Because Masons should immediately like gravitate towards the number 3, right? So we have number 3 in like everything in our ritual. And not only is it a really good mnemonic system that human beings remember things in groups of 3s, but also there start to be other connotations that go with the number 3. I did hear something, this is a little sidetrack, a little while ago, where that our human brains really can't hold more than 3 or 4 items in our short-term memory per period of time. So when you hear someone's phone number, usually think of it as like 555 1234, right? You think of them in those chunks, right? So that's how we memorize a 7-digit number, but we're really doing 3, 2, and 2.
It's the same combination I put on my luggage.
Remind me to go change the combination of my luggage. So, so when you have these aspects of 3, think even in your Masonic lodge that you may have pillars, you may have officers, you may have parts and counterparts as well. And so where I'm trying to go with this is that if you look at a lot of research on numerology or kind of like lots of different versions of the Trinity, even outside of a Christian context, you'll find that there's often one of those 3 is an active principle, something that is aggressive, forceful, sometimes mean or evil, and then you'll have a second one, which is a passive principle, receptive, maybe even female-like, kind, gentle, feminine qualities. And then you'll have the balance between the two. You'll have this middle column. You'll have this balance of the force between the light side and the dark side, where, depending on which text you read, it could also be called the neuter or the neutral. So you have an active, a passive, or neuter. Joe?
Neuter. Well, no, don't say neutral. I think you're thinking about what you're going to do to your puppy in a few weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, snip. But no, I think you're spot on, and I think the very first thing you said doesn't get thought about a lot sitting in a lodge room, right? It's like we don't think about this concept of 3s, and we don't think about all these different symbols. And I don't know how deep you got into it last week, but all these symbols, which the Tria Prima is an excellent example of, just these understandings that people have had for millennia about, body, soul, and spirit, right? And how that's really represented in a lodge room. People don't think about that most of the time. They just don't, so it kind of takes a little edging and pushing and shoving to kind of put them down that road, that these symbols are here, whether it's the Tria Prima or it's the concept of 3 pillars. And people are probably going to say, well, there's only 2 pillars in the lodge. Pay attention. Okay, there's 3. But, there's this concept of 3s, and it's done so for a very important reason. And the Tria Prima is an excellent example of that, of us using a physical substances to describe a spiritual process, right? But again, how often do you go sit in lodge, eat your green beans, walk in, open your crinkly paper candy, you know, Werther's Originals, whatever. They're so delicious, but so damn loud. And think about that while you're sitting in lodge.
You were going to say something, Jason?
Well, I was going to harken back to what we talked about last week with the idea of Mercury being the conveyance mechanism. You know, in the process, you know, you have sulfur and Mercury, and Mercury is the water element that brings everything together and unites everything. And so, you know, in the Masonic lodge experience, I kind of see as that mercurial element, flowing through the master who provides.
Could you say that again?
The mercurial.
Ah, thank you.
He only needs 2 tries, unlike you.
Yeah, I got it a second time. But that essence, you know, to me flows through the master when he gives instruction. And so it's the conveyance mechanism for the transformative process of the ritual, you know, bringing it from the divine down to the candidate to start their transformation.
I like.
That's all I got. Good night.
No, but yeah, it's again, and you know, for those of you who are not familiar with the Tria Prima, you know, all those aspects are there, you know, and you can lift and shift a lot of the symbolism here to what John was saying. That's, you know, the concept of pillars, whether it's the pillars in a Masonic lodge or the pillars in a Kabbalistic sense, right? They all have the same basic characteristics. They're just different ways that we're given to use our brains to interpret these symbols, right, and find that meaning that's under the surface, that quote unquote esoteric meaning, right? That most people hate that word, but we don't here. So, yeah, I mean, those are there. But I mean, if I like Mercury, you know, because like you said, John, it's a little bit of both. It's the active and the passive. It's that fluid and that changing aspect of nature, you know, which kind of relates most to our human spirit, right? So, and it really sits nicely when you're talking about the concept of 3 degrees. You know, there's that 3 again. You know, it talks about, and it symbolizes the mind and the spirit, you know, the volatile nature, the ethereal qualities, all those things are just packed up into there. You just got to be able to pick it apart and hopefully find some cool people to discuss it with, you know, not your dog, you know, not your baby, you know, find someone who can give it back to you and that can pronounce Greek properly, and you'll be all set. Well,
and you know, Mercury is really like the grill that brings the crab to the coals
during the roast.
During the crab roast.
Crab roast 2024. June 14th.
Nice. I gotta make something happen in June.
Ooh.
I gotta make something happen. All right, that's I'll put a pin in that for later.
You guys busy for Father's Day weekend?
Maybe. So yeah, so I'm glad you jumped right to the classical elements there, right? We talked about salt being the corresponding to the classical element of earth, and then in this case we have Mercury as corresponding to the classical element of water. If you're doing the solely the triad, then it would be both air and water. So you can do the math to figure out what sulfur is going to be next week. But if you're doing the triad, then Mercury would be kind of that middle ground between earth and like the ultimate fire being. So, but if not, it's solely just the water element, which makes sense, right? Because it is in its liquid state. It is this living water that we start with. So it's kind of cool. I mean, so that's an immediate classical element correspondence that makes common sense.
It is the living water that unalives everything else.
That's why it's still living and you're not.
Really quickly. Like very, very quickly.
Right. So let's shift gears again to the tetramorph. We talked a little bit about the tetramorph last week.
Ooh.
And so that's the four-faced being. And where salt was the face of the bull in the tetramorph, the correspondence with Mercury is to man, is to the human element, right? Because you still have the lion and the eagle as well. Again, remember, you can see the tetramorph in lots of different artwork and styles, but probably most visually in your face in the tarot card of the world. So that's where the Mercury corresponds in that system. In ancient alchemical symbolism, remember we talked about alchemy last week, having to code its ingredients lists so people couldn't easily replicate it. Where salt, anytime you saw the word winged dragon, was an indicator for salt. The code word or words for Mercury, when you're actually doing operative alchemy, were things like, and this is wild because it's the longest one, the winged and bearded hermaphrodite, throned upon a cube and crowned with flames.
It's a busy
Yeah, just rolls off the tongue.
Busy little guy / gal. Yes.
I'm going to try to find that in the Splendor Solace.
Ooh, nice. See if we can get a picture of that. The winged and bearded hermaphrodite, throned upon a cube and crowned with flames. It's
He's
very
going
metal.
to look for real. Yeah, it's very, very metal. Yeah. Yeah. Like not 80s metal, like early 2000s metal. You know, different metal vibe.
Which is cool. So going to go down a little rabbit hole here. My esoteric ears perk up when I hear about I love it. The King James version onlyists have left the chat. That's it. I'm out.
1611 or bust.
Dragons in the Bible.
But there were leviathans, there were dragons. There was a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind when I hear hermaphrodite is our favorite hermaphrodite under the Scottish Rite system. If you've taken any of everyone has a favorite hermaphrodite.
I was going to say I don't know what my favorite is, but okay.
Rebus.
Tell me, John.
Let's see. Hope we can get a picture of old Rebus here. Old Uncle Rebus. There we go. So, if you've ever taken the Master Craftsman course from the Scottish Rite, Southern jurisdiction, they have this icon, even in a more modern sense, as its logo. Mostly because it's cool. Secondly, because this hermaphroditic character of Rebus is actually holding a square in one hand and a compass in the other, which this dates back to a long time ago.
That's kind of awesome, actually. I mean, that kind of steps a little bit outside of the original Greek. Hermaphroditus was started out as a boy, actually. So it was the child of Hermes and Aphrodite. That's where the name comes from. But it was he at the time was a good job, Sunkar. He was a very handsome boy. And because he was the child of two very famous dope deity figures, they attempted to rape him. So in an effort to make that go away, they took the person who was going to rape him and the hermaphroditus and merged them two together into one form. And that's where they became a actual hermaphrodite.
Interesting. Hey, can you zoom in on that, Jason?
Yeah, I don't have my readers on, Jason.
Yeah, I'll come back to it.
You can't just like click and scroll your mouse wheel, control and scroll.
I'm giving her all she's gotten.
You need to update your Chrome too, by the way.
No, this is plate number 9 of the Splendor Solace. We looked at plate 5 last week, and there is your winged hermaphrodite.
Who shaved that week?
Yes, no beard.
Yes, yes. Yes, presumably the dude, presumably the dudette.
Hmm.
Red
Nice.
wing, white wing.
Love it.
Yeah. Very, very cool
Awesome.
of artwork.
That's Joe's looking to get a new tattoo. That's a good design. Moving along. Let's see. One thing that was kind of cool too that I referenced was, and I don't have it near me, is Jamie Paul Lamb's book about the Fellowcraft, Approaching the Middle Chamber. That's a good book, especially if you want to go down any rabbit holes like this, like because he brought the receipts as well, as they say, with all the detail of where these things come from. And one thing that I found interesting is where he talks about. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Jason has it at the ready. Good. If in music, for example, that salt is the rhythm because it's the bass, it's the grounding element, then Mercury is the spirit of music. Right?
I like it. Plus 10 to JPL.
It gets you in the flow zone when you're doing all your jazz improv. That's the Mercury talking. Also in his book, shortly in that same section where they do focus quite a bit on the Tria Prima, is the Fellowcraft degree, where you get the wages of the Fellowcraft, like the corn, wine, and oil. Where salt, we talked a lot about salt being corn, like corned beef. And you guessed it, a water element would be associated with wine.
Yay!
Well, and if we could go back real quick to
Sure.
what we were just talking about, when you look at the Pythagorean concept of music, so music being vibrational, it's also been said that music is, and I think Jamie talks about this in his book, music to the Pythagoreans were numbers in time. And so there's that fluidity, that vibration, and that motion built into the Pythagorean concept of music as a liberal science.
I like it. Let's see. Next correspondence. One thing that I neglected to cover, but I did a little more research this week, and we didn't talk about astrology per se. So what are in a lot of classical astrology, when you're talking about elements, you're also talking about what planets rule over those elements as well. There's a whole show that could be done on that. the least of which being that certain planets rule over certain types of plants, certain elements, and so when you operate with them, right, you should try to time that with the planet being kind of overhead, or the timing of the planets with the literal operation, right, the operative part of alchemy that goes with that. And so again, I find it kind of interesting that salt, we had talked about salt being corresponding with the classical element of earth, and that its astrological correspondence is with the moon, which is a passive element, right? It's a reflector, right? So think like the moon reflects the sunlight. So that's kind of a neat correspondence. And that's what, again, I love this. In case you haven't heard me say it before, when you see these patterns, like it all starts to come together. Joe.
Well, no, I was just going to say it takes on that, we don't talk about it that much anymore, but it takes on that silvery aspect, right? When we're talking about the moon shining, you know what I mean? It's not, and sometimes on a good night you get a silvery moon, they wrote songs about it in the 40s.
So that's for salt though. Salt is has the moon corresponding over it.
Oh, screw you, salt.
Because, Mercury, I hope you're sitting down for this, actually has the planet Mercury as its ruling planet. Yeah.
I knew that.
Yes.
I knew that.
I like it though. Good recover. right? So
Well, I mean, we can talk about if we're going to go down the astrology route.
mhm,
Mercury or Quicksilver, but the planet, it rules over Gemini and Virgo, right? Which
good
have
catch.
their
Yep.
own meanings and stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm trying to save the day here because I totally flubbed it on the
That's
moon.
that's very
Um,
insightful, Joe.
Thank you so much. But yeah, but I mean, I think it talks to and help me out here, John, because you know this way more than I. But I mean, Gemini talks about like communication and being flexible or being fluid, being
Mhm.
able to change. And then Virgo is kind of like John Ruark, right? It's very precise and analytical. And yeah, when I think Virgo, I think John Ruark.
When you think of virgins, you think of okay.
No,
Yes. No.
you ruined
Yeah,
it.
that's a good one. So you can guess what sulfur's going to be then if we have the moon for salt. Those of you following along at home,
Your
Venus.
anus. Oh.
yes, Uranus is.
That's the wrong way to say it, sir. That's not how you say it.
When did
They're,
that come into vernacular? When
they're
did that?
switching it back. They're switching it back around,
Are they
man. Like
really?
my kids, my kids are correcting me. They were saying, I would say Uranus, and they're like, no, it's Uranus. I'm like, oh, we can say it again like normal, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, great. So I guess it doesn't
Is
laugh
Pluto
reacts.
still not a planet though?
Still not a planet. Yep.
Dwarf planet.
Ugh.
Ah,
8.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Tell you what. Okay. We did talk a little bit about hermetic magic, something I'm blatantly unaware of, but where salt was represented as the bull, this is another interesting long descriptor of Mercury. The dog is Hermanubis, like Anubis, hard R. Hermanubis, the Mercury of the sages, fluid, air, and water. Pluto is so a planet, yes. So Mercury, the dog, Hermanubis. Interesting.
That's very alchemical. We're just taking different deities and just
Yeah.
little Hermes, little Anubis, smush them together.
Mm-hmm. And then
It's
I think
called syncretism.
just take a little of this, a little of that, mush it together.
It's like the entire Masonic Blue Lodge system. Ooh, I like that. I like that.
No. That's so when you want to say it in a pretty way, it's called an amalgamation.
No. If you want to say it even better, it's from time immemorial.
Time.
And the last correspondence I have here is... Oh, this comes out of Elias Levi's Transcendental Magic. Really good read if you haven't read it. On the concept of determination, where salt was wisdom, Mercury is about your personal skill and application. So you take some wisdom and the other, and you apply your personal skill and application. You apply it, like Jason was saying earlier, right?
The conveyance mechanism.
The conveyance mechanism. We have a couple people who are skeptical of Levy, but without Elias Levy, you wouldn't have Morals and Dogma, so or a large portion of it for sure.
Or that really awesome picture of Baphomet.
I was going to say, or the Baphomet picture.
Yes.
Nice.
He'd just be Mamet, the severed head, right?
That is true.
On like an etching, on like a wood etching or something, and be hard to see. No, you just got full blown everything Baphomet.
Funny enough, Agrippa makes a comment in his first book on occult philosophy about the Templars.
Really?
And yeah, and their supposed heresy around worshiping the headless thing or the
So when
sacred
did he write his first book?
Mid 1500s.
Okay. Just trying to get the time frame right here. It was the style of the time. All right. So, unless you guys have any other historical or other systems to relate to, I did want to see kind of how would then you take what we've covered from the the salt section and the mercury section and start applying this today, because I always like to go practical with this stuff too. Great. It's all cool. It's all heady. It's all fun, abstract stuff. But now what? Like, how would you take these into consideration as you're trying to perfect your living stone, as it were?
Well, without practical application, the base doesn't matter. You need some sort of motion for transformation to occur. An object at rest will stay at rest until Mercury comes in and puts that object into motion, catalyzing your transformation. And so you can have all of the head knowledge in the world and all of the intellectual knowledge around a change process. But until you start applying it to yourself and, inculcating those tenets, you're not going to transform and you're not going to change.
Yeah, no, that was spot on. I think when we're talking about applying this practically, like the big so what, as John likes to say, yeah, I mean, when you look at the active and the passive coming together in Mercury as a symbol, it talks about being fluid with things, being able to adapt, not being stuck in the same rut all the time, and how we always like to go where we're comfortable, right? We retreat to comfortability as people, right? And we all do it, every single one of us, even though we're enlightened and amazing and wonderful, we still retreat to those points of comfortability. But having a symbol like Mercury in the context of the Tria Prima, it teaches us to be agile with the way that we think and being adaptable. And then I think at the end, it teaches us that we are interconnected, right? So Mercury's role as the agent of change comprises both the active and the passive elements, right? And it teaches us that we're all interconnected, and that may sound very, new agey and stuff, but as we learn more, the more we start to see that all this stuff is interconnected. And when you encapsulate it all in the concept of the Tria Prima, the salt, the sulfur, and the mercury, it's a good roadmap to give you symbols to think about transforming yourself spiritually.
Yeah, I'll build on that too. I like that concept of kind of flowing with whatever obstacle you're coming up to. So again, this is the balance between whatever your path is. So there's two things that come to mind there. There's like the story of I believe it's the oak versus the bamboo reeds, right? And so like the oak tree was so rigid that when a storm came by, it actually just snapped in half, where the bamboo reeds, while smaller, were actually able to survive because they could bend and flow with the storm, right? So I think a lot about that from a mercurial standpoint, as well as how do we take our environment but go with the flow, as it were, right? Another one's like I think it's a Bruce Lee quote, "Be water, my friend," right? Where the mercurial waters, it's how do you adapt? How do you adapt to the environment? So not just being a conveyance mechanism, but also when faced with obstacles. I'm also thinking of the Stoic philosophy, which says, I've been reading a lot of that lately. It's interesting, where the obstacle is the path, right? That you need those obstacles to learn, to grow, and to overcome. And so avoiding the obstacle won't make you a better person. And so part of that is just adapting to the environment, adapting to your circumstances while you are applying, all of your newfound knowledge. Yeah, your hubris. I like that. Mm-hmm. Great.
I'm captivated by Joe's guest.
Oh, that one.
Yeah,
she's in a mood.
Jumping from chair to chair.
Well, the puppy was chasing the symbol of Mercury in my house, the fluid, nonstop, never shut up puppy was chasing her, and she's in no mood for it. She's the
Nice.
passive principle.
Nice.
Yes.
All right. So, what's the danger of applying too much mercury? And not, yes, in the literal sense, but
Well, you have to keep you have to keep yourself grounded. So, there's a reason why, to study Kabbalah, in Judaism, you typically have to be married already, have a family, and be older, because that tethers you to the world while you explore the mystical Kabbalah. Similar here, you need to keep yourself grounded in what you are as you make that or undergo that process of transformation. As you jump off the deep end, don't forget who you are to begin with.
minimum age 40, married, well versed in the Talmud.
Yep.
But these are guidelines.
Well, there. What are we worried about?
That's right. All right. How about you, Joe? What happens if you apply too much of the mercurial element?
Well, I mean, too much of any one thing, right, is no good, right? And
That's what I tell my kids.
Sum it all up. Yes, sum it all up just by a healthy balance is good. But when you spend too much time moving and shaking and ducking and jiving, you're not at no point have your feet planted and actually doing anything, right? You're just in motion constantly, like Hermes, the winged messenger, could not keep him still. But you got to stop and actually get stuff done once in a while. So I mean, it's just the balance.
Awesome. Well, great. So, based on that, let's start wrapping it up and going to our final thoughts on tonight's episode. And so I'll just cut straight to Jason for final thoughts on Mercury as a element of the Tria Prima. Got it right this time, Joe.
There we go. So I really enjoy talking about alchemical change and transformation. And so, when we look at Mercury, it's beginning that process, right? Congrats, Ian, on your fellow craft. Looking good, bro. And for me specifically, this rings very, very true for me, because I stay very in the salt space, like intellectualism, learning. But over the past couple of years, I've really been making a dedicated push toward inculcation and putting what I've learned into practice, and that's a hard thing to do. It's a scary thing to do. Yes, Suncard, I am definitely salty. You should have heard all three of us in the green room before the show. Maybe one day we'll record that for the patrons.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, excited for next week.
Nice. What's next week? What are we doing next week?
Sulphur.
Speaking of salty.
Fuego. Yes. That's next week though. So yeah, this week, super bummed I missed last week because I felt like I'm just jumping into the conversation when you guys laid a really good framework for things. So mea culpa. But yeah, no, this is the fun element in the Tria Prima. I am big into symbolism. I love where Mercury sits and what it means and how you can take that meaning and, like we said, apply it, make it practical and make all of this flowery stuff that we're talking about somewhat useful in your daily life. But again, that's Freemasonry, and that's all these things that provide symbols for you to think upon. It's giving you easy ways to remember the important aspects of our existence. me being a middle-aged person, I start to ponder existence a lot. So, yeah, thanks for coming along on the ride, and we'll keep doing it together.
Death's knocking, Joe.
Shut up.
Very salty. Over in the green beans room.
I was happy. Yeah.
We've got a new name now. I love it.
Oh, boo, I hate you.
We don't say that on this show anymore.
It's too negative, Joe.
Oh, what did we say again?
As you wish.
As you wish.
There we go.
Okay. Yes, I love this concept here too. Really enjoying the research for this. Mercury being that chemical balance, right? How do we, like Jason said, balance between being too grounded and too much in the clouds? We got to find that middle ground that works for you. The answer's different for everybody. But think about how it even applies in your Masonic career. What are you doing that's not just too much in the academic space, the nerdy space? What are you doing to help out your brothers in lodge? And how are you also not just being, a fork and knife Mason or a pancake Mason or a green bean Mason, and doing those things to actually help contribute to to elevate your lodge experience. So, think about that. Think about how it applies in your profession as well. What is that balance of, like a whole bunch of metaphors come to mind, whether it's like the strategic versus the tactical, right? How do you make sure that you're not just only focused in the moment, but also making sure that you're looking ahead for the future. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that, but it's all about the balance to me, and it's a reminder for us to make sure that keeping ourselves in check, right? Don't swing one way too far or the other, which we'll talk more about next week as we finish up on Sulphur. This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully I'll get my pronunciation right next week. We'll find out.
Thank
Place
you.
your bets now. And I want to thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.
Wow.
Where was the lightning bolt noises?